I got a landlord on TikTok asking their tenants fry so much food that all the kitchen cabinets have so much grease on them. And I guess the tenants aren't cleaning that. Could this landlord give a 3-day notice to the tenant to clean the grease up, or can they be evicted? Hi, my name is Rob Wells. I'm the Landlord Warrior on TikTok and YouTube. Please feel free to like, share, and subscribe to our videos here. Now, this landlord brings up a very good question. I've kind of seen this from time to time about how a tenant has to maintain their rental unit, okay? And this is assuming this landlord has a written rental agreement, okay? Because you got to have a written rental agreement to probably be able to enforce a lease term that states that you got to keep the place clean and sanitary. Might be able to if it's an oral lease agreement as an implicit form of the law, you know, that type of deal. But it's best that you have an explicit term, because if you do, you could give a tenant a 3-day notice to pay, or not pay rent, or a 3-day notice to perform covenants or quit to address this potential lease violation if the lease has a provision that says that the tenant must keep the unit clean and sanitary. Okay, now your mileage is going to vary because some landlords, particularly if you're a landlord subject to the Tenants Protection Act of 2019 and the Tenants Protection Act protections have kicked in, let's say this tenancy is over 1 year old under state law, TPA would apply generally, you would have to have cause to evict the tenant. Okay, and under the Tenants Protection Act, you have to give a tenant a warning notice for anything that is a curable violation. In this case, if the tenant wasn't keeping their unit clean and sanitary, and let's say the landlord was in the unit for whatever reason, the tenant had a maintenance problem and noticed that this landlord noticed here that the kitchen cabinets have, like, I don't know, all kinds of grease on them. Theoretically, the landlord could give a 3-day notice to perform covenants or vacate, warning the tenants, hey, you got to keep your place clean and sanitary, and on such and such date when we came in here to fix the sink or whatever it was, we saw a bunch of grease. There was like an inch worth of grease on the cabinets. Okay, that's something you theoretically can do. Now, you should use caution when doing these types of notices, because you don't want to appear like you're manufacturing just cause, and it has to be something that's material, okay? If it was like a little grease stain on the cabinet, I'd be like, landlord, let that go. Do you want to spend, you know, $5,000+ with a guy like me to address like some trivial issue? Or if it's like, hey, there's like an inch worth of lard on the floor all over the kitchen because they're not cleaning it up, okay, I'd see that's material. Okay, kind of reminds me of a war story. Actually, I lived in a property when I was in college at SF State. I shared an apartment, and this landlord was renting rooms, and I, being myself, hey, I'm just trying to study at State, you know, I wanted the cheapest place, so I got a place for like $650 a month. I shared a unit with another older couple. They love to cook, and in fact, my brother joked with me, hey bro, your stuff smells like shrimp. You live in the shrimp palace. So I understand where this landlord's coming from. You know, hey, the grease, the smells, all that stuff, it might be, you know, getting into the cabinets and stuff, and if the tenants are properly cleaning that stuff, yeah, I could say you can issue a notice for that, okay? But you don't want to, like, you know, run to the courthouse and that type of deal, just to, you know, if it's something trivial or it's something that could be fixed. And a lot of times I tell my landlords, hey, you know what? Why don't you informally address this with your tenant? Hey, listen, we noticed, you know, it's kind of a little greasy in here. You know, your lease says you got to keep this stuff clean. Every so often, wipe down the cabinets and stuff, okay? I know maybe it's an oversight, that type of deal, because I just bring this up because you don't want to appear like you're trying to kick someone out, okay? As I explain to landlords, you want to show that you're being reasonable here, and this is something that is a material issue, okay? So keep that in mind. All right, folks, if you're in the Northern California area and you're contemplating, you got a tenant problem like this one and you need some help, some guidance, feel free to reach out. We might be able to help out. Put your comments down below. Until next time, folks, I'll see you then. Thanks.